I'm Avtk Anandaprama Ac, and presently I'm HPMGL in Berlin sector, and I am the rector of AnandaNagar Master Unit in Ireland. So I'm very happy here to be in AnandaNagar and speaking to you. I was asked to tell a little bit how I got into AnandaNagar, and that was by the grace of my dear friend who turned a momentous birthday of 40 years old and decided to want to change her life. And so I saw an advertisement in the newspaper that there was a free yoga class in Vermont. And we took the yoga class, and Giridhar was giving this yoga class, and it was brilliant. I fell madly in love with AnandaNagar, with yoga, with meditation, with kirtan. And my friend didn't get involved at all. But very inspiring, my unit in Vermont. And so I got inspired to my first retreat in Anandanar in the center of America. And I went to this retreat. And when I was at this retreat, Dada Vimalananda and Didi Mitra came to talk about AnandaNagar. Yeah, Didi Ananda Mitra and Dada Vimalananda came to talk about AnandaNagar.
This was what, in the 70s?
This was in the 80s, actually, late 80s, you know. So I got so inspired. Actually, when Didi Mitra started talking about this project, she was talking about this project for women called the Wisdom Project that was here in AnandaNagar, and it was about health. And when it was, you know, a whole acronym for women in development, and when she said there was going to be reforestation and tree planting, I realized, wow, I work for the Forest Service in America. And then she said, we're going to be doing feeding program, and I realized, wow, I work for the UN in Somalia doing a feeding program. And then she talked about women and child health, and I realized I had worked in Liberia in Africa with women and child health. So I was like, tears just started rolling down my face, and I couldn't understand why I was crying, because, but it was something so deep that touched me. I felt like my whole life was geared to just to go to this project in India. And so it was just pouring down my face. So then I thought, I really have to go to India. But then I thought, no, I was really planning with my boyfriend and two other friends. We were riding our bicycles around the world. We had been planning for 2 years. We had all our route planned, our bicycles, we had our funding, everything was ready. And now I'm thinking to go to India instead. So I was doing kirtan at this retreat. Everybody was doing kirtan round and round. It was quite dark with little candles. And I said, okay, Baba, if you really want me to go to India, you better shed a little light on the subject. And as I said that, all the lights in the Dharma chakra flash on. And I said, okay, Baba, thank you. I get the message. I guess I should go. And I was really new. I was a new Margi. I didn't really know much about AnandaNagar, except that I love kirtan and meditation. So off I went to India with Giridhar and Durga, and they got me as far as Calcutta. I learned later that actually when I got to Calcutta, and Didi Mitra said, oh, I've got a sister's going to help at AnandaNagar. And actually the General Secretary said, impossible. No foreigners are allowed at AnandaNagar. She didn't tell me that. And I ended up in Umanivas, which was a little bit far from central AnandaNagar. I brought my 18-speed mountain bike, which I was supposed to ride around the world. And rather, I rode around Umanivas with a Bengali nurse on the back, and we used to give supplementary little feeding, and we used to do arm circumferences to check children's health. And just yesterday I went to visit this clinic that I built there for maternal child health in Umanivas. But at that time, Baba hadn't given any projects for Didi's. It was just here. And it was just one Didi, LFT, and 3 children and I. And now, it's amazing. There's a college, there's a high school for girls. There are, 60 girls going to high school there. So it's amazing to see the development here in AnandaNagar.
So, had you met Baba at this stage? When was your first meeting with Baba?
Well, that was the great blessing, because living here at AnandaNagar, every Saturday I would take the train overnight to Calcutta and arrive Sunday morning, and I'd go see Dada Simananda, because at that time he was the farm secretary here, and he would tell what plants to buy. So Didi, Mitra, and I would go to Hati Bagan, which is a huge market in Calcutta, and we'd buy all these plants, and then I would go have my lunch, go and sit and wait for Baba. So I'd get to see Baba every Sunday for darshan, which was such a great blessing, really a great blessing. And that was the last years of his life. That was 1988, 89 into 90 was when, and then as soon as Baba's darshan was finished Sunday night, I would rush to the train station with my baskets and baskets of plants, hop on, take the train all night, and arrive back here at AnandaNagar and plant all week. So,
what was it like when you first saw Baba giving his darshan? Was it feeling like, was it blissful, or was it indifferent, or disappointment?
it was quizzical, for sure. It was very interesting. Also, seeing Baba, we used to rush. There was such an attraction. We used to rush to see Baba. We would look through little keyholes. We would climb trees. We'd put bricks on the thing to see Baba. There was such an attraction. And my mind would say, you're crazy. What would your friends think? Seeing you running after, and my heart would say, no, this is just what I want to be doing. This is wonderful. And so we played this hide and seek game a lot. It was a lovely hide and seek game, wanting to see Baba all the time. And I guess one of my best experiences about that was I was with Didi and Mitra, and she was a great Karmi, Jnani, and Bhakti yogi. And she knew exactly, she had that sense when Baba would be coming out. And she was always working for the Dadas, so it was very easy. Normally it wasn't easy to get in Baba's house, but with her it was easy. So we'd get in there, and then she'd be doing work with the Dadas, and all of a sudden they'd say, Baba's coming. And one of my favorite was when we were hiding in this little room that was GS's, just on just on the edge of the driveway, which Baba used to walk back and forth between his house and Kinchuk's. And we hid behind there. There was a little curtain, and Baba started walking back and forth. And the Dadas, of course, they're walking backwards, writing things down. This was a Prabhat Sangeet they were writing, taking it down. And Baba was so kind. Right in front of our window, he stopped, knowing full well we were there. He stopped, we're hiding behind the curtain, and he explained to them, and he said, no, that's not the way you sing that song. He said, you should sing it like this. To me, kache deke dure go. And he put the emphasis where he wanted it. But when he was doing this, he was orchestrating. He was orchestrating the whole thing, and I thought, here I am, in front of the whole orchestrator of the universe. He's right here, and he's orchestrating for me a Prabhat Sangeet, but he's orchestrating the universe. So there's some of these things that were just like so special and so lovely that Baba somehow brought me, here just for the last couple years of his life. It was really special and brilliant.
So from that blissful experience, tell me about, you had a not so blissful experience of AnandaNagar.
Yeah, that was my, Tantra. This was my tantric experience. Anyway, at that time, there was a lot of Tantra going on here. I didn't, till many, many years later, I didn't understand why. But I'll tell you the reason why now, because it makes more sense. I didn't understand why the communists were attacking. They were pulling Dadas out, beating them up. They were pulling Didis out, beating them up. They were attacking all of our projects. And I didn't understand at all. And at that point, what was really happening? I didn't really understand the why. But later I found out what had happened is Baba had in one reporting, had gotten all the proud Dadas to stand up and say, when are you going to establish Prout in AnandaNagar, in India, in the world? And of course they said, well, a year. No, too long. 6 months. too long. When are you going to establish in AnandaNagar? When are you going to establish? They said, okay, Baba, and they gave him some very quick answer, Then they went around. They went to Chitmu, to one of the teachers there, and said, would you like to be the Minister of Prout Education Department? Sure. I wrote it down. They went to the doctor, would you like to be the Minister of Health? Sure, write it down. They publish this in the newspaper. It comes out, AnandaMarga has established Prout in AnandaNagar. The communists were livid. This was, so that's when they started attacking. And it was a terrible situation. It was a very unsafe situation. But anyway, there was a medical camp coming, so we were asked to go pick up some sweets and fruit for the doctors in Bokhara. I had my little scooter, and on the back of my scooter was, that time her name was Lakshmi. She's a homeopath. Her name is Radha from England. And it was a fasting day. We were on the scooter, and we could understand that, like, all the Dadas were in one corner discussing this and talking about quick Bengali and Hindi, and I had no idea what they were saying. Only thing is, Dada Pranavananda said, be careful, be really careful. They were actually trying to decide maybe we shouldn't go or maybe which way we should go, So, but they didn't tell us that. They just said, he said, be careful. And I said, don't worry, Baba will save us. Baba will help us. Don't worry, So he let us go. So off we go. As we get heading towards Bokhara, we come down this hill, and we can see in the distance a high school that we're building, boys' high school. And on the right, the first thing is a hostel for boys. And I'm looking and thinking, it's all broken down. It was, what's that doing? And we see in the far distance this huge communist banner, hammer and sickle, red flag, and there's got to be 100 men all down there, and they're actually breaking down this building. And I kind of finally look and see, wow, and start to turn around. And as I'm turning around, these 100 men start chasing us. So we turn around, but between us and going back to AnandaNagar, there's 6 men. And one picks up one of these broken bricks and boom, hits me in the head, knocks me unconscious. We crash. And when I get up, these 6 men are right around us. One, I also remember, he had a spear kind of thing, and he couldn't decide whether to go like this or like this. Now, by Baba's grace, Chirsmita, who has saved me many times and also inspired me many times, she had sent this little pepper spray. So luckily, luckily Lakshmi at that time, that she was my lucky star, she sprayed these, and they were throwing stones, and they were, all these 6 men were really close. The others were coming, but it was far away. So she sprayed this, and they started crying. And we get the motorcycle, I get the motorcycle up, and the first time, boom, it doesn't start. Second time, boom, and finally it's like, Baba, 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 boom, it starts, and away we go. Now, the interesting thing about that, is like, it's Tantra. Baba arranges everything. Actually, the day before, I had gotten my 3rd free tune-up from this, vehicle, so it was ready to go. Second thing is that one sister had come from Australia to teach self-defense. And this was maybe months before. And I thought, well, I learned this self-defense, but I never practice it. So for 2 weeks in my life, I practiced punching and kicking. And then I got hit in the head. So I had this very tantric, I thought, okay, I am going to fight till the end. But fight or flight. Flight at that point was way better, because fight wouldn't have done it. So off we go. We get back to AnandaNagar. We're fasting that day. We put them, and I am bleeding like anything, but also Baba's grace. I belong to the ambulance inspired by Chirsmita. And I said, but I live on the top of the mountain. I can't be on the ambulance. She said, well, maybe you'll need it sometime. And this is the time I needed it. To understand that, you bleed a lot from facial wounds and things. So I went into ambulance mode, so I didn't go into shock, which would have also not been so good. So we get back here, and we go up to the farm, drop the motorcycle, lie down, and I was in total bliss. And there were some Margis visiting. I remember this French couple, they're saying, what are you smiling about? And I said, I was saved. Baba saved me. it was one of the most blissful experiences in my life because only Baba saved me, only Baba saved me. And later on, after, and there's many experiences about that because the police came and they took us, and that was an interesting part of it because actually Baba was using it for a purpose. Because we were being attacked, we were trying all kinds of things to stop it. Didi Mitra had been in Delhi talking to every minister, every head of the religions, everything, trying to get this West Bengal government to stop harassing, us in AnandaNagar. And that time, there was a communist government as part of the central government. So nobody was doing anything. Nobody was saying anything. It wasn't working. So Baba creates this drama. And after I get attacked, we get put in jail. Everybody else gets deported but me. All the people I was with get deported. And it becomes a drama that every day in the newspaper, there's an article.
Why were you deported?
Because I had lost I had no documents. So they couldn't buy me a ticket to get out. So this was like totally Baba's grace. Also, it was very interesting. I've got now a concussion, right? And luckily I was on the ambulance. I taught him how to wrap this whole head up, right? And when they're asking us, like first thing they say to me is, "You must be CIA." And when they said that, I realized, I think I'm in trouble because there's no way to prove that you're just an innocent bystander or whatever. It's like, I can't prove anything. And then the other thing is they ask in the other room, they're asking Lakshmi, Radha, and she says, "Do you know who you have there?" No, what do you mean? "Do you know who you have there?" No. She won the Nobel Peace Prize, and they went, "What?" So they asked me, "Did you ever receive a prize?" Now I've got a concussion and I'm thinking, what are they talking about? But then of course I explained, yes, in 1981, when I worked for the UN High Commission for Refugees, we won the Nobel Peace Prize. I was working in refugee camps in Somalia. So we all got a commendation letter, and the organization got the money, the 100,000. And so, but this kind of changed, this was the dynamic that Baba so in the newspapers, the juxtaposition was when she did social service in Africa, she gets the Nobel Peace Prize, and here in Bengal, she gets hit in the head and almost killed. So, Baba is such, and you realize, Baba says we're all playing part of the drama. Some plays happy parts, and there was nothing I could do. Everybody's gone. There's nothing. I couldn't see a lawyer. I couldn't talk to anybody, right in the beginning. Nobody, so that was good. I could just relax and rest and do sadhana. And then finally the Supreme Court said, no, you have to allow her to see people. No, she has to be in the hospital to actually get proper treatment. So then I was in the hospital, the same thing, with 5 guards. I'd never had 5 police guards in my life. But Baba sent Dada every day to give a report, which was really, really nice. So he was asking. And so again, I'm totally blissed out, Mamata Banerjee came, she at that time, now she's the Prime Minister of West Bengal, but at that time she was a political, but she came to say, look, I had the same problem with the communists. They beat me up too. They dragged her through the streets by her hair and stuff. So she was very apologetic, saying, this is not in the Bengal, she said this is not part of the culture. We're very peaceful, educated, cultural people. This is not really the part. Sorry. Mother Teresa wrote a letter, give up all your suffering for, the poor and things like that. So it was amazing, this drama that Baba created. Yeah.
So going into another topic, tell us about your training.
Oh, my training. Okay, well, it took me a long time to get to training. My training was very practical because I worked with Didi Mitra, as I said before, she was and is a great karma yogi, jnani, yogi. So I had worked with her a long time, and we went off to Brazil to start a mass unit, and then there was the Earth Summit, the biggest eco-festival in the world, so we worked in that. And I had tried before, when we were in Europe, trying to get funding for the the program in Brazil. So at that time I said, okay, now I'm going to training center. And she was like, no, you've got to help, Then I went to Brazil.
Was that Earth Summit, just from other interviews? Is that the one that Navanera and Under?
Yeah, Sankirtan, yeah. So I was there, and we organized a lot of programs for that. We had to organize a program that some students from Sweden would come with the street kids that we were working with in Brazil. So yeah, it was a great program. Yeah, really great. But afterwards, at that point, I said, I'm going to training. So I wanted to go to training in India. So I went back to America, and then I went to India to go to training. Now, when I got to India, all Peruta Pramukh and all the head of everybody was in Berlin sector.
What year is this?
This is in 1992, I think it is, 92. Yeah, so they're all, body has left his body. And which I could tell you more about that experience. But anyway, so Baba had left his body. So now I'm going, I want to go in India. And when I get to India, they say, no. You have to get permission from those people. They're in, and they're not going to give you permission. You can't go. So you have to go to either Manila or Berlin sector to Sweden. So I went to Sweden. And it was really Baba's grace, actually. Amazing. Actually, even the event of how I got there, I didn't really have enough money. And I said to the trainees were there, everybody was there in Matakaruna. So I said, I'll catch a ride with them. I called them, can I catch a ride? And they said, no room. So I partly went by train, then I hitchhiked. And I also had to stop in Sweden and talk to this group. They had agreed to give us a lot of money, 250,000 euro grant to help start the master unit in Brazil. But somebody had to go and talk to them and explain, this was all how this was, and get the money from them and all this stuff. And I was like the perfect person. So I went to their festival, and we organized that whole bit. They were very inspired. We got the money. We gave them. There was a Didi who came from Brazil. She went back, figured out how they were on fieldwork. But I never do. I don't go to see Baba on fieldwork. I wait till, and I'm anxious, and I kind of was like, what am I going to do? I want to go see, and I didn't go. And that's probably the thing maybe I regret in my life, was I didn't go that morning fieldwork, because he did go on fieldwork. That was the last time people saw him. And I stayed, and then we were there, and we were just, all of a sudden they came and said, you've got to sing kirtan. Baba's not well. So everybody started singing kirtan. We immediately, Didi Mitra and I, got dressed, ran over to Tiljula. When we get to Tiljula, and Baba's house, the gate is locked. The gate opened, and she rushes through with all the Didis, and I got stuck outside. And it was crazy, because I heard them say something in Bengali, and I thought they said, he's going. And I thought it was to the hospital, because the ambulance came, and I ran up. I have my EMT emergency, I gave that to someone at the gate, said, can I help, and they said, no, and the ambulance sat there. And we sat outside, and we're waiting, Baba didn't come. And I thought they said he was going. And then I turned to this Didi, she works in Thailand, and she says, no, they said Baba's gone. I said, really? Next time the door opened, we rush in. And wow, it was so intense, so heavy, so many people just, weeping and crying and asking. But then, Avtk Anandaprama comes up to me and says, no, this is just a test. Don't worry. Baba hasn't left his body. Don't worry, he's coming back, because we were talking about that. Baba has done experiments on bringing people back to life. So he said, don't worry. So he was all happy. Mita comes from America. She's the same, all happy. And I'm thinking, I don't know. And first they asked me, like this with a camera, they say, can you run a camera? I said, sure, why not? Because I heard Baba had also said that when he was in Punjab, and someone he gave a bag. He asked the guy, can you carry my bag? And he said, sure, why not? And Baba said, that's the spirit, you know, that's the spirit. So they said, can you run? Sure, why not? So they set up the camera. All I had to do was stand there, and people were coming around, and Baba's body was there, and we would stay all night, 3 or 4 in the morning. Didi Karuna would put new flowers and change the ice, and Baba was there, you know, and it was such a solemn, and that was a beautiful time, though, those hours in the middle of the night. And then finally some Dada came and took the camera from me, so I wasn't there for that. But they said, okay, you stay here and help. When people were coming around, and the women would pass out or fall on the ground, you know. And so my job was to help them up and keep them moving. And every day we were just there, and it was really intense. It was very interesting because then after the 5 days, and I was thinking, you know, Baba's not coming back to this body, you know, because I was there seeing the body. And Didi Mitra was supposed to say something and she had to look through the whole book one of the books that she had compiled, you know, she couldn't find what she wanted to say, you know, and that was the parting message from the Philippines, where Baba said, I'm leaving you now, but I'll always be with you. And then he finally says, my one last thing to say, I am yours. So the funny thing is, I had this habit of reading Svadhyaya. So I had just that day opened up to that one, and I said, oh, Didi, look at what I got. She said, I've been looking for that, and I've been looking and looking, I couldn't find it. There it was. So she read that out. My job was also to not, they thought someone might commit sati, you know, jump on the funeral pyre. But it was quite up high, so I was like one of the guards around the thing. It was quite high, and it was just amazing to see thousands and thousands of Margis come. And when Kinshuk lit the fire, the audience just was like a wail as the smoke went up. And then everyone stood to do kirtan, and they tried to pull the Didis down, you know. No, but no way. Everybody was doing kirtan. Everybody was doing kirtan. We did that for hours and hours. And at one point, it was amazing. This whole circle of white doves, it was like amazing. They just circled and came down, and they gave their blessings to the Lord and then flew up. It was amazing. And it was just amazing, yeah. And then the realization that as the smoke is coming, we're breathing, we're imbibing, you know, the essence of the Lord in the smoke. It was, wow, amazing time. Amazing time. Yeah. We'd give the money and all this stuff, and I went to training. And I got to training on Shravani Purnima. And Shravani Purnima is when Baba gave the first initiation. And who was there but Paroda Paru, Didi Ananda Gita, you know, Tattvavananda Dada, you know, all these, you know, all the great head. Yeah, they were all there, and it was like, wow, you know, so great. So because I'd been trying so long to get to training, I was so happy to be in training. It was brilliant. It was brilliant. It's the opportunity of a lifetime to be at a place where everything is geared so you can do sadhana. Everything is geared, your whole program, you know, exactly, you know, from morning till night.
So, tell me a day's routine.
Well, the day's routine for us, we would get up early, 4:30 or something. At different times, depending who was in charge, we'd get up and do some exercise before Panchajanya, 4:30, go for a walk or something. I was a big skier. I found when we also did collection to support our food, so I had collected skis as well. So we'd exercise at PT, a little maybe skiing then or skiing later. Then, you know, Panchajanya. At that time when I got there, I was amazed. I walked in, you know, the first morning, and there were like, you know, 19 sisters, you know, in Sweden. And I was shocked. I was so happy to see so many, you know, trainees, you know. And you had your first week that you were free not to follow the schedule, but I love the schedule. I love the fact that they've got the schedule, you know, so you've got your morning duties. It's quiet until breakfast, you know, there's Manavrat, you're doing all your spiritual practices, then you have breakfast, and then you have some studies, maybe a class. When I first got there, there weren't many classes because Dada Dhruvananda was ill and was it in India. But then Dada, Ishvar Krishnananda, he was there and he was a wonderful trainer. So we would have classes, we'd have lunch, we'd have some karma yoga. And like I said, we went to support. At that time, there were over 30 trainees in Sweden. Beautiful. It's in the middle of the forest. You know, it's just set for sadhana.
What were the classes about?
Well, the classes were spiritual philosophy and all kinds of classes. I remember Dada being very tantric and explaining to us what it was all about. This tantra, you know, freedom from dullness and how we had to be tantrikas in everything. And I think one of the most tantric things for us, we were secluded in this beautiful, you know, ashram in the middle of the woods, but we had to go make our money and feed ourselves. So we would go out, a whole group of us. I was the driver. We would have, you know, the whole 9-passenger van full of sisters, full of food, full of everything. We stayed in a little shack at a farmhouse, and every day we would go out and we go door to door. Now this is something you have to learn, how to speak to people about AnandaNagar. And it was a great way to practice your second lesson, you know, and your ideation, because, you know, and offer different things that we had to support our training center. You know, you'd say we're from the International School of Social Service. That's how we were registered, and we're to help our support doing this. And we'd meet very interesting people, and it would really build your strength and total surrender and ideation on Baba. And then when we'd get back, you'd say, okay, Dada would say, well done, spiritual soldiers. Let's do kirtan, you know, and we'd do kirtan for 3 days or 5 days straight, 24 hours, and back in the bliss. It was great. I loved it.
How was the training?
Well, our training was a little longer because Dada Dhruvananda didn't come back. So we had no examiner. So we stayed a long time. And then finally, I was there over a year and a half, let's say, year and a half. Visa was running out. So I got to fulfill my samskara. I wanted to go to India to training. So we were the first. They said, well, look, okay, try and renew your visa. We didn't hear anything.
Sorry, just before you get...
Oh, well, the worst part of the SBT was no shoes. It's minus 22. No, you know, you get one set of clothing and one blanket. Okay, no toothbrush. That's one of the worst too. Toothpaste, toothbrush, that I felt. But anyway, and they provide food for you once a day. You get a food that you can cook. But the thing about the no shoes, everyone was saying when they had SBT, oh, it was so nice to walk, you know, so nice walking, you know, barefoot across because the sisters have their training center across the street from the Dadas, maybe 5 minutes away. Okay, so you tell me how nice it is. They call a meeting. I try and write and say, I don't want to come to the meeting. It's about food. I don't want to come to the meeting about food. No, you have to come. So I have to come. So I get my, you know, one blanket and no shoes, and I start walking over. By the time I got to the other side, my feet were frostbitten. They were frozen. I tried to warm them up. I was crying, tears. And you know what? On the way back, I decided there was nothing about walking. It was about flying and not touching the ground, not touching the thing. But the great thing about it is your total focus is on, you're not talking, you're not involved, like the people are not even supposed to recognize you. You're just in your own little world of spirituality. It's kind of a little bit like fasting when you're supposed to be upavasya, in touch with the divine, right? That's the whole thing about it. So blissful, so blissful.
And you found that was a very important aspect of sadhana.
Oh, totally. To go deep in your sadhana. Because training is all set up for that, you know? And as I say, during my training, there wasn't so many practical. Luckily, for me, I had a lot of practical skills because I became a Didi later in life. I knew how to survive, to do this, to do that, to teach. I had taught different things. I knew, you know, how to survive, I'd worked, I lived in this world. I think it's more challenging for people who come straight into training and don't have any of those skills. because a lot of them aren't taught. I think nowadays maybe it's a bit better, more practical, because Baba's given a list of things you should really learn. But the biggest thing is learn surrender and connection. And
So to become an acharya, it's not so, although it's important to have the intellectual knowledge, but it's more than just doing a course of memorizing.
No. And this was very interesting. Even when it came to exams and stuff. There was one sister who was very intellectual. She was from Romania, and she was smart, young, smart, very smart. And here I am, a little bit older. I'm not used to taking exams orally. I always did written exams. I always did okay. I was never, I did well. But now I have to take these exams, I think what to do. But it was very interesting in my exam. The first one of the Dada had told me, please, you help this sister. She's from Taiwan. She doesn't speak very good English. Please help her with her English. Okay, so I'm helping her with her English, and I'm thinking, I should be studying, I have these exams to take. And I didn't have time. I'm busy helping her with English and doing all these other tasks. And then comes the exam. And the examiner asks her a question. What is number 29 of social norms or something? And she said, and then my question is she correct? And I knew that she knew everything. I knew she was totally correct, but she didn't have good English. So I said, yes, that was my question. So for me, it was once again a realization, you need to follow what you're told to do, and Baba will help you in whatever it is, And this other, I started with this sister from Romania who was very intelligent. Now comes the Prout exam, and she thinks she's going to whiz it, So interesting, Baba's play. They asked her a question, she didn't know it. They asked her another question, she didn't know another question. She was like, you could see, she was shocked, because she knew more than anybody, but she didn't pass the exam. The exam is not about the knowledge, it's about the real commitment. Yeah. So that was fascinating. Another story was that with Didi Sheila. She was also in my batch, and she decided that in the Bengali exam she was going to have fun. So we're taking this Bengali exam. No, she's from Australia. And so she decides in Bengali she's going to have fun, right? And we're all there, and you have to write. The thing is, you have to write it in Bengali, the answers and all this stuff. So she's finished like this, and we're all writing. I'm thinking, wow, that was quick. And we end up all passing. She didn't even write it in the script. She just wrote, and I was shocked, but it was her ideation that she just decided she'd surrendered to Baba and she was going to have fun. She did. So the exams are not the exams. Exams are something even deeper. Right, exactly. Yeah. And I've given, I was LFT trainer for a while, by default as the LFT trainer left, and in Ireland, and had some lovely sisters come through in LFT training. And you really realize it's about this surrender, And when I would see Dada give the exams, because we then take to SS whoever it was, and often it was Dada Shubatmananda, who was a great one, you could see that in the whole idea of the exam is to teach as well, to see what people know and to expand their knowledge and inspire them. And so it's more about that than really, exactly. It's what you can take to heart and imbibe in your spirit.
And how long are you LFT training?
LFT training usually goes for a month. Yeah, a month. And they get to do SBT. Yeah. And it's so interesting to see because, it was in Ireland. And so what we would do, normally in India, not with the Didis, but, they Hariam Tatsat, you go and see what you beg for. Of course, we don't have that in Ireland, but we have a farm, so it's like, okay, you can forage what you like. And they're lucky. There's lots of things to forage and eat, and so they're really lucky that way. But also, it's like, it can be very cold in Ireland. And again, they have no shoes. And we say, okay, there's a stove, you're in the Dharma Chakra room, there's a stove there. You can put wood if you want. And some people, they're so busy carrying the wood, and the place is like a sauna. And some people, they just want to do kirtan, so that's all they do. And they stay warm through their kirtan and meditation. It's fascinating.
Tell me about around Baba's passing.
Yeah. That was a shocker for everybody, I think. I was in, like I said, I used to go every Sunday to Calcutta, so I was there. It was a Sunday, and normally, as I said, I didn't go over to Baba's until after lunch, but I would sit there and wait for 3 hours. We'd get in early before the gates really were shut and wait for Baba. So this day I was really anxious in the morning, and I was thinking, I'd like to go see Baba, on fieldwork, but I never do. I don't go to see Baba on fieldwork. I wait till, and I'm anxious, and I kind of was like, what am I going to do? I want to go see, and I didn't go, and that's probably the thing maybe I regret in my life was I didn't go that morning fieldwork, because he did go on fieldwork. That was the last time people saw him, and I stayed, and then we were there, and we were just, all of a sudden they came and said, you've got to sing kirtan. Baba's not well. So everybody started singing kirtan. We immediately, Didi Mitra and I, got dressed, ran over to Tiljula. When we get to Tiljula, and Baba's house, the gate is locked. The gate opened, and she rushes through with all the Didis, and I got stuck outside. And it was crazy because I heard them say something in Bengali, and I thought they said, he's going. And I thought it was to the hospital because the ambulance came, and I ran up. I have my EMT emergency, I gave that to someone at the gate, said, can I help? And they said, no, yeah. And the ambulance sat there. And we sat outside, and we're waiting. Baba didn't come. And I thought they said he was going. And then I turned to this Didi, she works in Thailand, and she says, no, they said Baba's gone. I said, really? Next time the door opened, we rush in. And wow, it was so intense, so heavy, so many people just, weeping and crying and asking. But then, Avtk Anandaprama comes up to me and says, no, this is just a test. Don't worry. Baba hasn't left his body. Don't worry, he's coming back, because we were talking about that. Baba has done experiments on bringing people back to life. So he said, don't worry. So he was all happy. Chushmita comes from America. She's the same, all happy. And I'm thinking, I don't know. And first they asked me, like this with a camera, they say, can you run a camera? I said, sure, why not? Because I heard Baba had also said that when he was in Punjab, and someone gave a bag. He asked the guy, can you carry my bag? And he said, sure, why not? And Baba said, that's the spirit, that's the spirit. So they said, can you run? Sure, why not? So they set up the camera. All I had to do was stand there. And people were coming around, and Baba's body was there. And we would stay all night, 3 or 4 in the morning. Didi Karuna would put new flowers and change the ice, and Baba was there, And it was such a solemn, and that was a beautiful time, though, those hours in the middle of the night. And then finally some dada came and took the camera from me, so I wasn't there for that. But they said, okay, you stay here and help. When people were coming around, and the women would pass out or fall on the ground, And so my job was to help them up and keep them moving. And every day we were just there, and it was really intense. It was very interesting because then after the 5 days, and I was thinking, Baba's not coming back to this body, because I was there seeing the body. And Didi Mitra was supposed to say something at that. And she had to look through the whole book one of the books that she had compiled, she couldn't find what she wanted to say, and that was the parting message from the Philippines, where Baba said, I'm leaving you now, but I'll always be with you. And then he finally says, my one last thing to say, I am yours. So the funny thing is, I had this habit of reading Svadhyaya. So I had just that day opened up to that one, and I said, oh, Didi, look at what I got. She said, I've been looking for that, and I've been looking and looking, I couldn't find it. There it was. So she read that out. My job was also to not, they thought someone might commit sati, jump on the funeral pyre. But it was quite up high, so I was like one of the guards around the thing. It was quite high, and it was just amazing to see thousands and thousands of Margis come. And when Kinshuk lit the fire, the audience just was like a wail as the smoke went up. And then everyone stood to do kirtan. And they tried to pull the Didis down, you know. No, but no way. Everybody was doing kirtan. Everybody was doing kirtan. We did that for hours and hours. And at one point, it was amazing. This whole circle of white doves, it was like amazing. They just circled and came down and they gave their blessings to the Lord and then flew up. It was amazing, and it was just amazing, yeah. And then the realization that as the smoke is coming, we're breathing, we're imbibing, you know, the essence of the Lord in the smoke. It was, wow, amazing time, amazing time. Yeah. On fieldwork, but I never do. You know, I don't go to see Baba on fieldwork. I wait till, and I'm anxious, and I kind of was like, what am I going to do? I want to go see, you know, and I didn't go, and that's probably the thing maybe I regret in my life was I didn't go that morning fieldwork because he did go on fieldwork. That was the last time people saw him, and I stayed, and then we were there, and we were just all of a sudden they came and said, "You've got to sing kirtan. Baba's not well." So everybody started singing kirtan. We immediately, Didi Mitra and I, got dressed, ran over to Tiljula. When we get to Tiljula, you know, and Baba's house, the gate is locked. The gate opened, and she rushes through with all the Didis, and I got stuck outside. And it was crazy because I heard them say something in Bengali, and I thought they said, "He's going." And I thought it was to the hospital because the ambulance came and I ran up. I have my EMT emergency, you know, I gave that to someone at the gate, said, "Can I help?" You know, and they said, no, yeah. And the ambulance sat there. And we sat outside and we're waiting and we're waiting. Baba didn't come, Baba didn't come, Baba didn't come. And I thought they said he was going. And then I turned to this Didi, she works in Thailand, and she says, no, they said Baba's gone. I said, really? Next time the door opened, we rush in. And wow, it was so intense, so heavy, so many people just, you know, weeping and crying and asking. But then, Avtk Anandaprama comes up to me and says, "No, this is just a test. Don't worry. You know, Baba hasn't left his body. Don't worry, you know, he's coming back." Because we were talking about that, Baba has done experiments on bringing people back to life. So he said, "Don't worry." So he was all happy. Mita comes from America. She's the same, all happy. And I'm thinking, I don't know. You know, and first they asked me, like this with a camera, they say, "Can you rent a camera?" I said, "Sure, why not?" Because I heard Baba had also said that when he was in Punjab, and someone gave a bag. He asked the guy, "Can you carry my bag?" And he said, "Sure, why not?" And Baba said, "That's the spirit, you know, that's the spirit." So they said, "Can you rent?" Sure, why not? So they set up the camera. All I had to do was stand there, and people were coming around, and Baba's body was there, and we would stay all night, 3 or 4 in the morning. Didi Karuna would put new flowers and change the ice, and Baba was there, you know, and it was such a solemn, and that was a beautiful time, though, those hours in the middle of the night. And then finally some Dada came and took the camera from me, so I wasn't there for that. But they said, "Okay, you stay here and help." When people were coming around and the women would pass out or fall on the ground, you know. And so my job was to help them up and keep them moving. And every day we were just there, and it was really intense. It was very interesting because then when after the 5 days, and I was thinking, you know, Baba's not coming back to this body, you know, because I was there seeing the body. And Didi Mitra was supposed to say something at that. And she had to look through the whole book one of the books that she had compiled, you know. She couldn't find what she wanted to say, you know. And that was the parting message from the Philippines, where Baba said, "I'm leaving you now, but I'll always be with you." And then he finally says, "My one last thing to say, I am yours." So the funny thing is, I had this habit of reading Svadhyaya. So I had just that day opened up to that one. And I said, "Oh, Didi, look at what I got." She said, "I've been looking for that. And I've been looking and looking. I couldn't find it." There it was. So she read that out. My job was also to not, they thought someone might commit sati, you know, jump on the funeral pyre. But it was quite up high, so I was like one of the guards around the thing. It was quite high, and it was just amazing to see thousands and thousands of Margis come. And when Kinshuk lit the fire, the audience just was like a whale as the smoke went up. And then everyone stood to do kirtan. And they tried to pull the Didis down, you know. No, but no way. Everybody was doing kirtan. Everybody was doing kirtan. We did that for hours and hours. And at one point, it was amazing. This whole circle of white doves, it was like amazing. They just circled and came down and they gave their blessings to the Lord and then flew up. It was amazing, and it was just amazing, yeah. And then the realization that as the smoke is coming, we're breathing, we're imbibing, you know, the essence of the Lord in the smoke. It was, wow, amazing time, yeah. Meeting Baba, I was working at AnandaNagar, and so there was a meeting, an Amar meeting, and I said, okay, finally I'm gonna get to see Baba, you know, up personally. I had seen, you know, I was working really hard, but I was working at Umanivas because we wanted Baba to come and see our project. So everybody else is sitting here singing and waiting for Baba, and I'm working, you know. And one day I came running back from work, take my bath, go running down this road here. Just before Baba's, there's this one little, it's kind of, right now it's covered in grass, but it's a roundabout, you know, and a car's coming, and I stop, and it's Baba's car. And Baba rolls up, you know, and car slows down, stops, and Baba gives me namaskar. And I look around, no one else is there. And I realized that for me was also a realization. Baba was saying, yes, you do your work, you know, I'm blessing that. You know, just as he blessed when I came back to India after this, Baba said yes. They said she's back in India, you know, after the accident, and I then went home and came back, and Baba said yes. They said, but she's got a mark here, and Baba said yes, that's her Jaya tilak. You know, the tilak is what the Indian women wear, and Jai is victory, and he said that's her mark of victory. And she'll be victorious in whatever she does. Yeah, so, you know, yeah, I was so happy. But then I had wanted to see Baba. This was before I'd wanted to see Baba. So it was the Amar meeting. So I go to I'm in the garden where I had planted a lot of the roses. I got the roses from Bokaro, and I had planted the roses. Now I'm in the garden waiting, and they say, okay, Baba's going to come. Dada Vishrupananda has my name's there on the list. Okay, we're waiting. Baba doesn't give the... Next day, Dada Vishrupananda's not there. The head of the Didis is there. And she looks at me and says, you're not going to get to see Baba. I was shocked. Why? What have I done? You know, I'm doing all this work. I'm doing Amar. What's all this? I was crestfallen. And she gives me my own VSS guard. And she says, guard her. And I was like... Anyway, I'm at the bottom. Everybody's up at the steps. GS calls me to ask about solar, because we were getting solar panels for this place. We say something, then I come back, and this Vijaya Lakshmi, who was a brilliant Amortel worker, nurse, Mexican-American, is at the top. She said, where'd you go? And I said, well, GS was asking about solar panels. She said, no, the source of the sun is here. Don't go. So she gave me the inspiration. I love her for that. So I'm at the bottom of the steps, waiting, and then the door opens at the top, Baba's house, and everybody rushes up the steps. I look around, Didi's gone, VSS is gone, I'm the last one in. The last will be first, and the first will be last. Everybody gets pushed to the back. I'm right in front of Baba, sitting. Thank you, I'm so happy, you know, I'm sitting there. And then all of a sudden, Baba's asking, and they say, stand up, stand up. So I have to stand up. And Baba says, what will you do for the women and children in these 55 villages in AnandaNagar? And I looked into Baba's eyes. I was gone. I was in the cosmos. I couldn't say anything. I was gone, totally gone. And then they're pulling on me, say something, say something. And Baba asked the question again. And I'm just gone. And finally, the only thing I could remember is solar, because I just, you know, I said, we'll give them solar cookies. I says, yes, that will be okay. But you should feed them. You should feed them something nutritious, like Horlicks. Okay? And so, and I sat down and I was in total bliss. I couldn't, Yeah. Since then, I mean, I run now I grow spirulina in Africa to feed malnourished kids, which is nice. And I have must be some scara to feed, what I can. And yeah, so blissful. And I always remember that. And the second part of that meeting that I always remember, and I think helpful to people, is at the end of this, they're telling all the different projects what you should do. Baba's telling you should do this. And then at the end, Dr. Bharat stands up. He's from Texas in America. Stands up and says, so, Baba, how are we going to get the money? Well, this is not something you ask Baba. All the Indian daughters, the blood rushes from their face. The look is like, oh no, Baba, the tantric, wrong question. Baba is going to be so angry. And then Baba, because Dr. Bharat, he was very simple, pure. Baba says, you do the work, the money will come. So I remember that. So that's what I have to say. Namaskar.